No, I will not go with you. One more time. No, I will not go with you. So obstacles are all problem-based. They shouldn't have an opinion of their own. So when electronics act up as if they do, it's concerning because now they're in the driver's seat and you're a data point to them. But then what's more concerning than that is that when systems try to act like they're robotic, as in having an entire chain of commerce or a ethics board in for the robot system, non-inclusive outcomes, such as middlemen giving peanuts to fat cats, himself to a plant and complaining about an obstacle that's different. Where my argument was that they're the same just because it's info based. Whereas a QR code, it'll be more similar to seeing a representation of the skull. Now this is a Hispanic origin, much like myself. In the saying ball and chain, it gets a whole new aspect with the ball is a bubble. Well, who's holding the chain? Now, if you're off the wall like Vans, that's one thing, but being off the chain, hang 10, but when you're on the chain and you have a short leash, well, that's what these aliens in Metroid were. They were all together in a simile, attacking the life. Well, the life was the Metroid person. And that's scary when life is being excavated and the opposition knows that your livelihood is its purpose to end. And so that was the leash. The Metroid, of course, would be the ball. The Metroid is like a human inside of a spacesuit, and it was a female inside of the spacesuit. The spacesuit was its bubble, the ball and chain aspect, where the aliens were trying to get the Metroid human inside of the bubble to have a shorter leash by ending their life. The whole game is circumferenced around staying alive by not having the aliens ending you in the game. But then when the game of life is real and you put the remote control down, you start looking around at, well, what is the alien and who's trying to put me in a bubble? But the 6 feet distancing is a personal bubble that is being legislated through corporate consumerism. If you're a consumer and you don't own your store, you have to go into a store with consuming to buy a consumption of product. Without that, you can't live. Very much like the Metroid game, except the aliens are the storekeeper, the book handler. In the library, the librarians told me to cover my face. Covering my face is putting me inside of a bubble. And they're gonna have more of a point the more dangerous that the alien gets. So in the video game Metroid, you go up levels and it gets harder to stay alive. I didn't take the librarians seriously, the bookkeepers. I was telling them I don't need a bubble at this point of time. I'm okay. But they weren't having it. They got more bookkeepers and they all teamed up against me, including the page master of the bookkeepers, the owner of the library. And so I did not put on the bubble in my face and I left. And the same week the legislation ended. but that's not the important part. The important part is that the next go around, where it's even more dangerous, where the threat is the death rate would increase above 1%, and then them telling you to put yourself into a bubble gets a whole lot more serious. The Delta Task Force team, or whatever task force team, will come to your door and rip you out. So when I talk about a personal bubble, this is no different than what the aliens in Metroid. They would be secluded because they can only survive within it. Now, what we don't want to happen is that the personal bubble to be the only thing that we have to survive. And you already saw this. There was these children playing instruments, but they were only doing so inside of a tent, ostensibly with a window in the end. I mean, in the front. So the saying of personal bubble in that scenario was quite literal. They were inside of a bubble, and much as the NBA, what they flat out say they're playing inside of a bubble. The bubble is the arena that they're in. And so you have all these men in the arena inside of the bubble. And it's kind of cool, but then after like a few minutes, it's not. When you're within the bubble, your regulation skyrockets. You see the innuendo? The skyrocketing of being inside of the bubble is the opposite of being able to have unadulterated access to livelihood and prosperity in the pursuit of happiness. It's when you have like ADD or other problems that people focus on it more. So the more that they focus on it, the more that the person intrinsically is induced into it. And what this could mean is that if it's just not visual, then it becomes their virtue. And when there's virtue signaling, the people tend to just gossip because there's nothing better, because they don't have the solutions of a subset to the game of life. And what simply this means in the video game Metroid, it's an extension of a video game Doom. Probably no one's ever said that, but you're battling aliens and you're in a spacesuit. So in both cases, that is inevitably it. And why that game and Doom are so important is that that's the bottom of the conception for all the deceptions, where you get to see was actually been the issue the whole time, of pertaining to an invasion of all reality itself. And in the video game, it has these aliens, and they're inside of these little like glass cases, like the Beauty and the Beast that you're probably more familiar with. Evo and Jackass did a whole bunch of these. This is a drug. I usually find cartridges on the ground of tobacco or tea. That one was of gas, nitrous oxide lean. And rolling. Keep rolling. No, don't go in the Milwaukee River. But back to Metroid, the aliens are inside of a glass, not a canister, but a glass divers would put on like this scuba helmet. And then the modern day spacemen, they have their fish tank visor over their face as well. And what these aliens do, that's their whole body is inside of this fish tank orb. And so then it's just their brain, and they've got two fangs that are coming out. And so, oh my gosh, this would be a killer snapshot. Hold on, wait 1 second. Let me reposition my 6-foot body of my anatomy. Okay, here we go. The aliens are, once again, Hispanic origin when they're squatting. I'm not racist, but if you notice one thing, that Hispanics and Russians and Middle Eastern men can be squatting, and you'll just see them doing that because that's part of the course for them. That is racist. Okay, but I'm one of them, so I can be. Not racist in saying it. So the aliens, that's all they have, and so it's just significant because you're going through the game and you're fighting them. It's synonymous to Super Mario having the Goombas. There's these little mushrooms. I don't know if they're even mushrooms, but they're little like mushroom-shaped guys with just these fangs, and they got 2 feet, and you stomp on them. In Metroid, they're kind of like floating around. And why it's not that important, but it is because we're getting hit with like bioweapons and delta invariance is the argument, but then the remedy for it is even more dangerous. So it's like a 2-tiered system. I mean, I'm sorry, they're trying to put us into a 2-tier system by invocating 2 attributes that will only have dissonance if you pertain to them. So then they go to different doors with knocking on places where they have hesitancy for the dissidents, and they say, this is the Delta variant task team force. We're here to say this is what you need to do. And then order, there's been more order in the United Nations where a guy says, we need to go into the homes and take out people who are sick and then isolate them so that they can get better. Now that is super scary because it's not the little aliens inside their glass tanks coming at you. It's these weirdos who think that they're being superheroes by ripping people out of their homes.